Hey, I'm Brett Miller and here with Jason Medford. And today we are walking a spiritual path together. And we wanted to talk today about some of the lessons, some of the things that we are currently working on. I know a lot of times we go through the fun stuff. We talk about, water elements and some of the different experiences maybe that we've had out there with things that are more kind of spiritual or, not kind of 3D or whatever. Um, and those are all fine. Those are definitely part of the path, but there are also a lot of, dare I say, almost mundane seeming things
Mhm.
along the way that I think are probably more important. I mean, they don't show up as good on an Instagram post or, as part of a TikTok maybe, but I think they are really more the foundation of kind of your spiritual practice. And so I thought today we'd kind of go back and talk a little bit about some of those things that we're working on so that you can see, the stuff that you're dealing with, we're probably dealing with too. Because again, we're just ordinary guys out here, nothing special.
Yeah, and just show that
Outside of
we're,
Jason's hat, which is pretty special, but beyond that, we're just regular guys. So,
well,
um,
and that we're all dealing with, I think again in on the spiritual path, a lot of people want to talk about the things that are flashy,
mhm,
right? That are extraordinary. But as you were talking, it reminds me of that Buddhist proverb, right? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? That a lot of even part
mhm,
of the whole enlightenment process can be seen as being very mundane as chopping wood and carrying water. But because there's some of those basic things that we have to continue to do and continue to peel the onion layer back further and further, that a lot of it is some of that. And so kind of
mhm.
talk about that. So I know, Brad,
Go
you
from
had
there. Yeah,
you had one to
yeah.
start with.
I've got a couple. Yeah, I do. I've got a couple here, and we'll see how this goes. I mean, maybe this turns into some sort of a regular, reoccurring thing, if people kind of find interest in it, kind of go to the things that we're kind of going through. But the first one I have on my list, going with the kind of not sexy stuff, is judgment. Um, we probably most of us, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think most of us, at least I know I tend to make judgments about people based on maybe things they say, things that they do, or even the way that they look. So I had an example of this last night. So my daughter was got invited to a birthday party at a swimming pool. So we were at the pool, and it's a bunch of kids that are, ages, I don't know, 5 to 12 or 13 or something like that. And then parents, they're all kind of out there swimming, in the pool and stuff like that. And, I just kind of was sitting there and just kind of watching, seeing, surveying the scene, just kind of seeing how things are going. And I caught myself making judgments about people that I would see, oftentimes based on their looks, or for some of them was what they wear. There was one individual who had a particular statement on their shirt, right?
Mm.
Something that I just kind of rolled my eyes when I read it because it's not something that I necessarily believe, or agree with. But I saw that and I made a judgment. The first thing that came to mind is I made a judgment about what that meant about that person, you know, and that is something I'm working on to not do that. Because I don't know, maybe that was a gift to that person that they, and they wore it because they wanted to show appreciation to the other person. Maybe it was the only thing they had it was laundry day, and that's just what they had to wear, the only clean shirt they had on to throw, or like, I'm just going swimming, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It could have been a lot of reasons why they wore that shirt today. Doesn't have necessarily mean they feel that way or believe that. And even if they do, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's none of my concern what they think, what they do, what shirts they decide to wear. It has nothing to do with me. But by me making a judgment about it, I was kind of making it something that involved me, and it really didn't. It had nothing absolutely to do with me. Um,
Mhm.
and so this is something, these quick decisions is something that I'm really trying to catch myself doing. And I've gotten a lot better with it. Like I used to, I'd make the judgment and not realize it. And I feel like I'm starting to like realize, and I did this last night. As soon as I made the judgment, I was like, oh, that's a judgment I made about that person, because of the shirt they had on, or the kind of the outfit they had on. If I thought maybe that, the swimsuit they had on maybe didn't fit their body as best. Like that was a judgment that I made about people, but I was catching myself doing it. And that's been it's been a path for me. That's been something I'm definitely working on for me.
Well, and it's interesting because we're all making judgments all the time. We think we're not, but we really are.
Hmm.
And the more that we can place awareness on it, like you said, the more we are thinking about that, bring it into
Hmm.
our awareness, then we can start to change it. Because literally everything that I do, I have this little clock sitting next to my computer, right? So I can quickly see what time it is, and it's in big letters, right? And it has a black, it's a black clock, right? It's got black plastic around the outside. Even just by saying that clock is black, in a way, I'm making a judgment, right? Because
Yeah.
again, it's like, well, is the clock really black? Well, no, because it has some white on it, and there's some gray in there, and there's some, so even a lot of times as we're observing the world and we're trying to understand the world, we start to label things, and the
Hmm.
labels end up becoming, little judgments
Yeah.
on up to, the big ones, like, because you were talking about the swim party. I'm like, is he going to bring up somebody wearing a Speedo? Because I've got a Speedo.
No one
But
had a Speedo. It was a children's party, so no one had a Speedo on.
no,
But
but I'm using that as an example because I'm in the same boat as Brad. And so, one thing that I'm working on as I'm catching myself are things like, maybe years ago, I'm going to use a guy, right? Like at one point I was 240, which is way too big for my body size, right? And so when I was that heavy, if I showed up wearing a Speedo, you probably wouldn't be able to see the Speedo very well, at least from the front, right? Because something would be covering it up, right? And so, when somebody is like that, a lot of times I think, most people may say, well, my goodness, that person's fat. Why are they wearing
right.
that Speedo, right? Because we're
Hmm.
making a judgment that it's wrong to show that much of your body if you're fat,
Right.
right?
Inappropriate to be wearing that.
Inappropriate.
Hmm.
But man, if it's a sexy man or woman that has the perfectly 3D type body, toned, muscular, then we say that's great, right? And we
Hmm.
think that's wonderful. And but maybe instead of you know doing a judgment like that of, oh, hey, that person's too big, they shouldn't be wearing something like that out in public. This is a children's party, it's going to scare the children and it scares me, right? Well, what if instead we look at it and either place no judgment, like, I don't, it doesn't really matter to me what they wear, I don't care one way or the other,
Hmm.
or look at it of, isn't it amazing that that person is a little overweight and they're so comfortable in their body that they don't mind showing it in public, right? That person must have a lot of confidence, because we can see the same thing, but kind of label it two different ways.
Hmm.
And so I am now coming, to where, hey, when people are showing more of their body, uh, you know, it hopefully means that they're more confident actually about it. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing that they've maybe evolved themselves to such a point that they love their body regardless of
Hmm.
how the world may judge their body, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's no good, nothing is bad or good inherently. It just
Right.
is. But
Yep.
we're the ones who says, hey, that's a good thing when a sexy, trim person is wearing this versus it's a bad thing when, someone maybe overweight is like that. The term overweight, that's a judgment. I mean, like,
That's a judgment by itself. Fat,
yeah.
certain words like that are judgments, that, again, as we're, because that's, I mean, that's one lesson I'm working on too, is using better words,
Hmm. Yeah.
because I think a lot of times we don't realize, uh, because our words are our wand, they're
Hmm.
magic. We're casting spells with what we say, and a lot of times there are better words to use, uh, but sometimes we're lazy, especially in the English language, and
Hmm.
we allow words to creep in that we don't realize the damage that we're doing when we're using them,
Hmm.
right? And so it's a constant, uh, using of better words, and I'm trying to think of a good example. Uh, well, or okay, this applies and doesn't apply, but I was talking about my partner, and bunny came up. The word, bunny, a little, like little bunny rabbit, oh, cute little bunny rabbit, and I'm like, little bunny foo foo, and she's like, first off, she's like, time out, just a minute, foo foo is not a good word in Russian. I'm like, what do you mean? So to say foo foo in Russian actually has a specific, like, negative connotation. And so then I'm like, well, hold it. I always thought of that song as like cute little bunny foo foo, right? And so I
Hmm.
Googled it and looked it up, and I'm like, no, bunny foo foo is picking up the field mice and bopping them on the head, right? And the fairy has to come along and say, don't do that, right? Stop doing that. It's like, so, even that, where I had kind of associated, oh, this cute little, term with it. Well, actually, the song is, Bunny Fufu's actions were not necessarily good actions, in that way, as far as, and so, I'm not going to use that term that way anymore, because now it means something different to me, and there's probably a better way that I can say it, or better words that I can use. Um, and we got off on that, I think, because you said, even words like overweight,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Everything's got some sort of a energy behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that just the fact that the rabbit hole we went down just shows how much work that I have to do when it comes to this, just because there's so much to it that, I know that I probably in this lifetime will never
Well, and we all
master it,
do, because
but
I'm the same way,
you know,
and it's like, just when you think you got something figured out, right? You get hit again.
that's
It's
right.
like, damn, I thought I learned that lesson. And we probably did. We learned that outer ring of the onion, and it got peeled back, and now we're on the
That's right.
next ring, and we've got to learn it and peel it and learn it and peel it and learn it and peel it
That's
and
right.
keep going. And I think that's one of the reasons why we, use terms like, a path, a journey, a long time, that it's
Mhm.
not a one and done. It's kind of the constant reminder of
That's right.
doing doing your best every day, and doing a little better every day if we can.
Yep. So judgment is one of the lessons that I'm currently working on.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and one for me, to talk about, and I think it goes along with consistency, and maybe in a way that you're not necessarily thinking about it, but for me, and I think we've talked about this on here before, but, part of the spiritual path is cleaning and tuning your instrument.
Mm-hmm.
i.e., your body, right?
Yep.
And so there's a lot of different things that I do to clean and tune my body. And one of those is, eating certain foods regularly, taking supplements and other things like that as well, from a physical standpoint to nourish and clean my body. And um, I was very, very good, very consistent at taking, like, especially, I'm just going to use the supplements part of it, right? Of taking all my
Mm-hmm.
different supplements every day, the things that I was supposed to take every day when I was supposed to take them. And for a long time, for years, I was actually very good at doing that. And then life just kind of got in the way, relationships changed, moved, all the, different things like that. And so there was enough kind of change up in my life that some of my consistent routines got interrupted, let's say. And so there were certain things where I was still doing consistently every day, but others where it wouldn't be consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, while also realizing that, you know, uh, sometimes life just happens, right? But I've started, with myself of doing things like, skipping one day, okay, 2 days, no,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, with the because things come up, right? We may be
Sure.
traveling, doing something else,
Your schedule's thrown
one
off somehow. Yeah.
one day or 2 days, okay, but it does not extend to the third day, right? That I will and I am consistent. In fact, I believe. Let me hold on here. Oh no, it's not on this one. Interesting. I have little cards too that have like things on them that I'm working on. And I was pretty sure that I had one called consistent, but I need to probably make one of those up to remind myself. Um, so with that, it doesn't sound sexy,
Right.
like, oh, taking your supplements every day, Jason, that's such a spiritual thing to do. Um, but especially because I got uh, uh, some new supplements that was suggested that I need to take now. And so then it's like, oh, already I'm not doing the other ones well. Now I got to sit
Now you add
down
them
with
on top of
this.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it took me, a week or two to kind of order and get all the stuff and then sit with it and figure out, okay, what in practice can I really do? Right. Because there's a lot of things that I'm taking. And so it's like, I got to figure out how to maybe, 3 times a day or 4 times a day, I've got to take some of these things and how can I incorporate them into what my normal schedule is?
Yeah.
How do which ones do I take with which ones? Because part of it is some of them are pills. And it's like you take too many pills at one time and, not so good for your tummy or feeling that way. And so, it took me probably a week or so just to kind of come up with and formulate a process and
Mhm.
get all the things that I needed and realize that, I've got like these little pill containers morning at or morning evening,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I know that, if every day I have to open every bottle, I'm not going to do it. And so if I set aside time on Sunday or whatever it is to do the prep work of,
Mhm.
adding all of the little capsules to either my morning or my night. And then I also see the day. So now I can start to see and make sure that I'm actually consistently taking in the
Mhm.
morning, taking in the evening. But then I have other things too, like these other powders and some other things that I take too that are not in, pop and pill format. And so it's like, okay, well, these I can add to my first cup of coffee in the morning. And I make a cup of coffee that just has a whole bunch of stuff in it. It doesn't really taste like coffee.
Drink that real quick and move on to the next
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
but and just finding ways to start incorporating that back in and start being more consistent and holding myself accountable. And I'm, you know, pat myself on the back a little bit, that I made it full through. This last week was the first time where I had everything lined up, everything was consistent, boom, 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 boom,
Mhm.
everything taken every day, right? And so um, that's my goal, that's my
Yeah.
intention, that's what I'm doing, that's why I'm working on the consistency. And now it's starting to, now that that's down or has been working for a week, and continue to go for a week, because now I have a way of kind of monitoring myself to
Mhm.
make sure that I'm doing it. I leave them on the counter. I know my partner likes to put them in the drawer, but when she puts them in the drawer, I forget.
You don't see them out of sight, out of
I don't
mind.
see them. And so mine have to be right here. Hers are in the drawer because she likes them away from light. Fine. But mine for the week need to be right here because I need to see them, right, to remind myself. So I've got that process in place. Now it's about me picking the next thing that I'm going to be consistent with, the next practice or exercise that maybe has fallen off the radar a little bit,
Mhm.
right? Of, okay, now how do I start becoming consistent with the next thing? And I'm just going to take one thing at a time, right?
Mhm.
Because if you try to do too much too quick, it never gets done, right? So now it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I think I got I got the supplements under control now, so now it's sitting down with, okay, what are the next one or two things
Mhm.
that I need to consistently incorporate in my life, and how am I going to fit it in? How am I going to
Yep.
keep hold myself accountable for it, and just slowly start adding back more and more of those things. Some of which I used to do routinely, and others that are maybe new that I've never done before. And I have to feel into what's right for me at the time and which ones I need to start working on now. And maybe I only do them for 3 months or 6 months or a month. I don't know. But I need to kind of incorporate in and consistently do the things that are resonating with me the most right now, the things that I feel like I need to be doing the most.
Sure. Yeah. You know, all about habits and
Yeah.
how you form set habits. And my daughter is gotten bad about brushing her teeth. So we have a little
Mm,
chart, a little sticker chart. And so she brushes in the morning, sticker, in the afternoon, in the evening, sticker. And, for floss, I think she gets another sticker or something. So it's the same sort of thing, a way to kind of keep track of what you're doing. And um, because if it's out of sight, out of mind, oftentimes you'll forget about it. So the key, at least I found for me, is to take something I'm trying to do and build it into an existing habit that I already do. So one thing that I've started doing actually two things I've started doing the past few weeks here. One of them is I've started something you've talked about doing is blessing my water.
hmm hmm
So that's something that I just never really thought about. I grab a drink of, grab water in a cup and walk off and not think about it. And so I've been trying to be more aware and conscious of actually taking the time to bless my water. When I fill a water, put my for a cup of tea or something, I bless it. The other habit that I've started doing is going out and watering the plants on our back
hmm
deck.
hmm
And so I've combined these two now so that I bless the water that I'm using to water the plants, and then to go out with the watering can, and I'll take them and I'll water the various plants we've got out there. We've got some vegetables and some flowers and some other things out there that need to be watered. So I go out there and do that. But I've stacked those habits
hmm
together so that I hit both of them, knock them off. And now I'm finding that as I'm starting getting the habit of blessing the water when I'm watering the plants, I'm finding that I'm starting to think about it now when I go just to fill up a cup of water for something else later on in the day.
hmm
So that is kind of for me helping with that consistency. Um,
Yeah, because totally. I mean, I was kind of the same way. I started mainly with when I would pour the water into my water bottle,
mm, mhm,
right? Because then I would drink from my water bottle. So I got consistent at doing it every time I poured that, but now I'm finding, like you, that I'm doing it more of the times too, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times when I pick up my coffee to drink, and again, we might think, well, that's coffee, that's not water. Yeah, it's 99% water probably, right? Or even, honestly, when you're peeing, you're putting water back into
Sure. The water cycle.
circulation,
Yeah.
and so, I think a lot of times people think, oh, poop and urine, disgusting, right? But it's like, well, in a way, that urine that's leaving my body is in a higher form than what came into my body, right? In some ways, because of the energy and everything else is going through and what it's helping me to do as well. And so and again, even if you're like, oh, that's disgusting, right? Well, okay, well, you have a toilet, most people have a toilet with water in it, right? Well, aren't you glad for an indoor water running toilet instead of having to go to an outhouse, right? And most of us probably have kind of forgotten what it's like in an outhouse without having the water to be able to flush everything away too, right? So there's another
Yep.
way to be at least grateful for the water, whether you bless it or not. Um, so yeah,
Yep.
that's interesting because and the whole idea of habit stacking is huge because that's
Mhm.
that's effectively what I kind of have been doing with some of the supplement stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
first thing in the morning when I get up, I drink some water, then I take some of the supplement stuff, then I have my first cup of coffee. So it's like I already have that routine, and
Mhm.
so I can stack onto, that some of the other stuff as
Yep.
well because I'm already going through that motion, just like you going out and watering the plants.
Yep. Cool. Well, I think we got enough time here. We'll run through one more little cycle here. So, another lesson, something I'm working on here, um, is, and kind of based on what we've talked about here in this podcast, may be a little surprising, but it is trusting in my gifts. So, we've talked a lot about how you can pick up on signals or signs and kind of the importance of listening to them and all that. And both Jason and I have shared experiences that we've had when we've gotten some sort of a message, right? I think maybe even a couple podcast episodes ago, right in the middle of our podcast episode, like I got a message coming through about something, right? Um, and it seems like, oh, well, that's just simple and easy, whatever. But it's taken me a while for us to get to that point where I start to hear them clearer, because so often we have just so much going on in our head, all the thoughts, all the things going on. And so part of it is being able to quiet it down enough to settle down my mind that I can actually hear and allow those things to come through. But another part is to trust that what you're actually receiving are messages and that you're not just making stuff up, you know. Um, yes, some of the things that come through are my head projecting things. It could be my ego, it could be fear, it could be just kind of something that I want to have happen, right? But I know a lot of the stuff that comes through is not me trying to create something, and I've been working on learning how to discern that when it is something that it is actually coming through versus my head trying to put something out there. So that's one part of it. The other part is there are other gifts too out there that I am trying to be more, for lack of a better term, kind of open to and trusting that there's coming through. Different ways things come to me, different skills, things that come to me maybe easier than others that I might have, or things that maybe are trying to start to come through, but I'm am I really allowing it to happen? And I'm not trying to come across too cryptic here, but a lot of it is just what are some of the things that out there that being able to connect to greater things, to higher consciousness or universe or whatever, and trust that that's happening, because there's the fear in the back of my head that I've been working against, that I will say, well, I can do XYZ. I've, get in meditation and I'm connecting to a spirit guide, let's say, and something that I think happens. Okay, awesome. I go back a second time and then nothing happens. And then I'm like, well, did I just make that first incident up? Was that actually some sort of a connection to a spirit guide? Or was that me just really hoping it's there because now I don't have it? Right. And so that I use that fear then to say, well, I'm afraid to go and do it again because I don't want to disprove that there's actually something there. Because if I do it again, I don't hear anything. Well, that must mean that there's nothing there. I'm making this up, right? I don't have that particular gift, or I can't actually connect to that particular guide, or whatever. And so it is getting past the fear that something's not going to show up right, or I'm going to do something wrong, and that keeping me from not doing it in the first place. And being allowing myself to try and to practice and to play with it, which is something I know we've talked about, is something that you need to do to be able to build and work on some of these things. But I find that kind of keep it down. So that's something I am working on, is to allow myself to open up and to play more with things and not let my fear get in the way and keep me from them.
Yeah, because it's interesting as you're talking about that, because I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, that's why every time we talk about these things, a lot of the stuff is going to be the same. And again, for some of you listening, you might be like you guys talking about judgment and consistency and trusting. What does it have to do with spirituality, right? Well, it has a lot to do with it. And I think, as you were talking, Brad, about the uh, sometimes we receive when it's right for us to receive, not when we want to receive.
Mhm.
And so I think what happens is this kind of like, I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he used a baseball analogy, but you can also do it for surfing and golf, which is this, right? Is that you're going along, in the baseball game, and most batters, when they get up to bat, either strike out or get out,
Mhm.
right? Because fully, usually 3 out of 4 times, maybe, 2 out of 3, if you're really, really a better player, are outs. And
Mhm.
so, but then there's sometimes that you get up there and you just hit the home run. You hit it out of the park.
Mhm.
And the elation is so great. And then it's like, okay, statistically speaking, you just hit a home run. Next at bat, what are you going
Probably
to
gonna
do?
strike out.
Probably
Yeah.
going to strike out, and it's
Hmm.
like, so we can't discount the fact that we just hit a home run because we got out the next time. And it's the same way like with surfing. You go out there, you sit in the water for a long time, you fight to get out there too, depending on the waves, to get to the right place to catch it. And you try on several different waves, and some of them you thought it was going to be the one, but it wasn't the one, and then you got to paddle back out further, right? But then you hit that wave, and it's like exhilarating, right? And then you got to go do it again. You got to paddle back out. You got to find the right wave. Oh, I thought that was the right wave. It wasn't the right wave. I got to wait for the next one, right? Or you're on the golf course, and I'm of the opinion that Mark Twain was, that golf is a 2 mile walk wasted, uh, on the frustration. But when I would hit the ball very well, there was like a huge elation.
Hmm.
But then you go back to hitting it in the other fairways and having to find your ball. I mean, I literally would carry like 15 golf balls with me every time I went to play golf, because I couldn't find most of the balls. They were just, I don't know where. you know.
I would actually play instead of keeping track of how many strokes I had. I'd actually keep track of if I would like had lost balls, if I was down a ball, or if I'd found balls on the course. So
Yeah.
if I was two up, then I was great because I found two golf balls more than I had lost.
Yeah.
And that way then I didn't get upset about, it took me 7 strokes to get from here to there because I
Yeah.
found two golf balls along the way. So it was a win, right?
It's a win. Well, it's all perspective, right?
That's right.
But I think it's, remembering those, whether it's baseball or surfing or golf or whatever, it's the
Hmm.
same way in this realm too, right? I mean, sometimes you sit down and boom, you have one of those home run, hole in one kind of experiences, and then you have to go a while before maybe you have that again. Because even people that I know who are tremendously gifted, it's not, like say with Dreamtime, we assume that people who are really good, or what I would consider good at Dreamtime, would think that they're just like having these amazing dreams that they're remembering every night. And it's like, oh, that no. The people that I know who are actually good at it, they go weeks, months in between, like having some of these really lucid dreams. And so, we just have to kind of remember that and keep moving forward, and just keep trusting and realize that, what you experienced is what you experienced, because we tend to want to doubt ourselves. And I do that. We
Yep.
want to doubt ourselves of, was that really what I saw or what I did? That's why it's always nice if there's somebody else who experiences something with you, because they're like, nope, that's what it was.
Yep. I
you
saw it
know,
too, or whatever.
I
Yeah.
saw it too, or whatever it was.
Hmm.
But that whole idea of trusting and kind of leaning into it, because the other thing, as you were talking, reminded me of, is sometimes we discount the voices in our head too. And I was taught one time, it's like when this person is speaking with you, you're going to think it's your own voice. You're going to think it's just you having a conversation in your head, but you're actually not. But it's going to seem like it's you speaking to yourself, but it's actually this other being coming through, right? And so, yes, if we are kind of in the fear and monkey mind kind of thing, then that's probably not where we're
Hmm.
at. But I think a lot of times when it feels like we're just talking to ourselves, we're maybe not just talking to ourselves, and more is actually happening than we realize. At least
Yep.
that's what I've started to find for myself.
Yeah. Well, same here. We
So
got one more to wrap up here with.
trusting, 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 trusting. I don't know. I think three is a good number probably for today's episode
Three is a
too.
number. Four
Three
is
is a
right
good.
out.
Four is the holy hand grenade.
There you go. Hmm.
Yeah. For those of you that love Monty Python, you'll understand that reference. But
Yep.
I think three is probably good today, because again, it's like, I mean, these are lessons that we're working on, some
Yeah.
practical ways that they're kind of tying in. Judgment, consistency, and trusting. Now, guess what? Next time we record one of these episodes, we might talk about the same three things again. Who knows? But there'll be different experiences or
Hmm.
examples of how we're dealing with it. But I think, also some of these things too, like especially, in a way, these are kind of ways of being, being consistent, being
Yeah.
trusting, being non-judgmental, right? Kind of flipping that around to being, maybe accepting is not the right word, but these are the kinds of things that we're always working on, you know, throughout this life. It's just part of what it is. And sometimes, it's the little things that make the big difference at the end of the
Hmm.
day. The turtle won the race, not the hare. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So with that, I think we wrap up for the week. So these are some things that we are lessons we're working on. And again, just to share what we're doing. let you know if these are some of the things you're working on. Hey, we're working on them too.
Mhm.
We're all together in this. Um, so, final things, Brad.
No, no. Again, just again, the things you're dealing with are the same things that we're dealing with too.
Yep.
So we're all kind of on this spiritual path. Maybe different points along the path, but it's still points in the path.
Yep.
So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, cool. Well, with that, we thank you guys for listening. We look forward to talk with you guys next week on the podcast. So we will see you guys then.
All right. Have a good week, everybody.